Why don't you introduce yourself? Okay, he's a cool guy. Yeah.
Good morning. At the end of 2022, my family got together and we talked about what had happened last year, what were the things that we were grateful for, and what were the things that we achieved. There were a few things that we were grateful for. We were grateful that the lockdown was finally over. We finally finished our building project in Henderson. We found tenants for all the houses. And the big thing for me was that I came back from the hospital. I would slowly gain my strength back. I passed the driving test, and so I can drive again. And I slowly gain more and more of my strength back so I can live a normal life. Not only these, there were a few things that our family achieved last year, and it is what I want to share with you today. The topic I want to share with you today is how goals happen. And it is the beginning of 2023, and it's a good time to talk about goals. I want to share with you a few things that me and my family achieved last year, and look into how these happened. What can we learn from these achieved goals, and how can we apply them to our life this year so we can achieve more goals in 2023. First of all, for goals to happen, you need God's work. One of the fundamental principles that we learn from the Bible is recognizing God's sovereignty. The doctrine of God's sovereignty basically means that God is in control. God initiates things, God allows things to happen, God made things happen, and God to stop things from happening. In James chapter 4, verse 13 to 15 says, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to do this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while, then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." And in Psalm chapter 127 verse 1 says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain." These Bible verses says that if we want to achieve certain goals like building houses or make money, the sort of goal that involves a degree of uncertainty, God has to allow it. God has to will it first. If God is not with us, or if God does not allow it, then our efforts are vain. Our work are not effective. Take building houses, for example. If you say, I got the money, I got the resources, why can't I just make it happen? Because no battery. That's what happens when God is not with me. Okay. I'll just say out loud for now, for a short while. Because you don't know what is going to happen in the future. One of the things that has happened in 2022 was a sudden change in the direction of the property market. In 2021, the property market was going crazy. Investors were paying insane prices for the properties. But in the beginning of 2022, there was a sudden change. It took a 180-degree turn. There was a change of a policy, and all of a sudden, no one were buying houses. Developers couldn't sell their houses, they had to drop their prices, and new developers were put on hold. And those developers who have started the building projects, they just have to press on and hope that they don't lose money by the end they finish their project. And I've seen a few building sites just suddenly comes to a halt, like half finished. And I've recently read that the average house prices in Auckland dropped like 18% in last year. So if you put your money into the property market at the end of 2021, you would have a very difficult year last year. Brothers and sisters, it is very important to seek God's guidance because we don't know what is going to happen in the future. We need to put our goals in God's hands and see if God will open the way. If you feel that God is not opening the way, or if you don't feel peaceful in your heart, maybe you should just put aside your goal and simply pray and wait for God to open the door. One of the biggest goals I achieved in 2022 was that I baptized my father-in-law. Yes, you heard it right. I baptized my father-in-law. So how did that happen? Well, let's just say I've been trying to share the gospel to my parents-in-law since I got married, and I've been married for 16 years. And in the beginning, I was full of zeal. I was presenting the gospel the wrong way. Plus, I wasn't getting along with my parents-in-law very well. So instead of bringing them close to God, it caused family conflict. And not only that, my mother-in-law was quite against Christianity. And she would not allow me to talk to my father-in-law about the Bible. And because she was always around my father-in-law, I didn't have the chance. So I gave up. I stopped trying to tell them about the gospel. I stopped trying to invite them to church. I thought I could never bring them to Christ. I thought if they're going to come to Christ, God would have to send someone else. And I simply pray and wait for something to happen. And in September 2022, something happened. My father-in-law was slowly losing weight. So they got him to do a health check. And he was diagnosed with CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, which is also known as blood cancer. He was immediately admitted to the hospital that evening. We don't know how long he's going to be in the hospital. So me and Lena decided that we would take turn to look after my father-in-law in the hospital. Next morning was my turn to go to the hospital. I felt that it was my opportunity to talk to my father-in-law about the gospel. I prayed about it. I asked my small groups to pray for me. I got my Bible ready. And I felt the Holy Spirit speaking to me, baptize him today. After everyone was gone and I was alone with my father-in-law, we started talking. And in the beginning, it didn't went well. He was indifferent to the gospel. He didn't want to know about it. And after an hour or two, I gave up. I thought, there's no way I'm going to baptize him today. It's not going to happen. I felt that voice I heard about baptizing my father-in-law. It wasn't from the Holy Spirit. It was just a mistake. But toward the end of the conversation, things took a strange turn. He asked me about whether he can be baptized in 1 or 2 years. I said, I can baptize you today. And he said, okay. It turned out that when he was young, he met a very powerful medium who did many miracles, raised a dead person to life, and she was able to see spirits, and she was very accurate with fortune telling. And she told my father-in-law that he will live to 72 years old. And it has been a burden in his heart in the last few years that he's going to die soon. And guess what? He is 72 years now, diagnosed with leukemia. Perhaps the prophecy was about to fulfill on him. But I showed him this verse. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God. I tell him that anyone who is in Christ is a new person. He will no longer be controlled by his fate. That prophecy will not work on him anymore. He said he wanted to get rid of that burden. He wanted to be baptized. And that afternoon, I found a container in the hospital. I got some water. I followed the Bread of Life church's routine of baptizing a person. And I baptized him there in the ED ward in Middlemore Hospital. He was out of hospital that afternoon, and he's doing quite well, receiving chemotherapy. Later on, when my son asked him about his baptism, he said that the moment he decided to get baptized, that burden in his heart just suddenly lifted. So, did I make it happen? Well, no, I didn't. I couldn't. This happened only because God has prepared the way. God guided the conversation, and only God knows what can move my father-in-law's heart. Brothers and sisters, in 2023, do you have a goal that you really want, but you couldn't do anything about it? I want to encourage you to continue to pray about it. Pray that God will prepare the way, that He will open the door, that He will send someone to do it. No, don't rush into it. Don't force it. Trust God in His timing and wait for God to open the way for you. So before I move on, can I ask you to turn around and say to your neighbor, you need God's work.
You need God's work.
And secondly, to achieve your goal, you need to work. One of the fundamental Bible principles is that everything happens through work. It takes work to get things done. For things to happen, you have to work on it, or someone else has to work on it. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23 says, all hard words bring a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. And Romans chapter 10, verse 14 to 15 says, how then can they call on the one who have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? Preach to them. And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 said, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. So whether you are talking about making money or trying to make someone believe in the gospel, someone has to work. You can't get results without work. And the same goes with your goals. For your goals to happen, you have to work. You know, in the first point, we talk about God's sovereignty. And what the wrong way to understand God's sovereignty was that, since God is sovereign and God is almighty, then whatever God wills will happen. So I don't need to do anything, I just wait. This kind of understanding of God's sovereignty is like predeterminism or fatalism. It gives you a very passive attitude. Just accepting whatever comes to you and not making goals or pursuing goals to make a difference. I don't think that's the right way to understand or apply God's sovereignty. When God wills something, someone has to do it to make it happen. In John chapter 4, verse 34 says, Jesus says, my food is to do the will of Him who sent me and to finish His work. And Jesus gave us an example of how He worked to achieve His goals. In the book of Luke, it repeatedly mentioned about Jesus going to Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem was Jesus' goal to fulfill His destiny, to die for the sins of the humanity. He needed to go to Jerusalem. And in the book of Luke, we found that in chapter 9, verse 51 says, as the time approached for Him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And chapter 13, verse 22 says, then Jesus went through the towns and villages, teaching as He made His way to Jerusalem. And in chapter 17, verse 11 says, now on His way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. In chapter 18, verse 31 says, Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophet about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. And in chapter 19, verse 28 says, after Jesus had said this, He went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. So in the book of Luke repeatedly mentioned that Jesus was going toward Jerusalem. Jerusalem symbolized His goal, a place where Jesus will fulfill His destiny. And for His 3.5 years of ministry on earth, He has to keep on pressing on, walking toward His goal. Brothers and sisters, what is your Jerusalem? What is your goal? If you want to reach your goal like Jesus, you have to keep on pressing on, keep on walking toward Jerusalem, toward your goal. If your goals without actions are merely wishes. One day I was looking at the mirror and I was very out of shape. And I thought, why am I so fat? I've always wanted to lose weight. Year after year, all my goal was to lose weight and to have a six-pack abs like the guys on the internet. And I have a plan. 1 kg of fat is about 7,700 calories. And the average calorie intake of a man like me is about 2,500 calories. Meaning that if I fast for 3 days, then I should be able to lose 1 kg of fat. And if I fast for 2 times a week and do it for 6 weeks, I should be able to lose 4 kg. But why am I so out of shape? After having a goal to lose weight for so many years, why am I found myself at the same place year after year, never made any progress? In fact, instead of losing weight, I gained weight. And the reason that I never made any progress was because I never take action. Even though I have the goal of losing weight, I have a plan of how to do it, I never take action. You know, whenever I decided to fast, something would happen, like family going out for a meal, or I don't feel like doing it, I feel too tired, or my evil friends telling me beside my ears, oh, lose weight tomorrow, lose weight another day. You know, I drank too much alcohol. I had a lot of stress when I was running a business company, a building company. And whenever I feel stressed and tired, I drink alcohol to relieve myself. And it became a habit. And you know what? Alcohol is as bad as fat. There are about 9 calories per gram of fat and 7 calories per gram of alcohol. And whenever I drink a lot. Can I blame my family, my friend, my work for being out of shape? Can I blame God? You know, God predestined me to be a fat guy? Well, no. No one controls my mouth. No one ever forced food into my mouth. I take full responsibility for my weight. I do it to myself. I ask for it. I made no achievement with my goal to lose weight. My daughter Audrey, on the other hand, made many achievements with her academic goals. Last year, in 2022, she passed grade 8 in her piano. She received a prize called Divinity Prize in her school. It is a prize that was given to students who perform very well overall. Plus that she was elected as one of the student leaders. And our family went to the prize giving, and we were all very proud of her. Her goal was actually to get a subject award in English and top of the class award. And although she didn't get the award that she was after, we were still very happy with what she has achieved. So how did she achieve so much last year? Well, I can tell you that although she's quite smart, she's not the most talented student, but she's definitely one of the hardest working students. She has the goal of achieving excellent plus in all her subjects, and she will work until late so she could get work done at a higher standard. I never need to remind her to work. It's her own goal, and she makes herself do all the work to make it happen. Not only did she do well in her strong subject, she also do well in her weak subject. You know, her strength is English, but her weakness is math. It only takes her brother Boaz to a split second to understand a new concept in math. But for her, she really needs to study and practice it to understand it. But you know what? She has great attitude. She just won't give up. She will just keep on practicing the questions until she feels confident. There was once she had a math exam, and so she got a stack of past exam papers, and she just practiced. And she came to me and asked me how to do that question. And after she had done that question, she would ask me to create another question for her to practice on. And after she had done that question, she asked me to create another question for her to practice on. And it went on and on. I was so tired. I wanted to sleep. But she just went on and on until she was confident that she completely understood it. Brothers and sisters, I don't know what is your goal. Maybe you have an academic goal. Maybe you want to get stronger. You want to lose weight like me. Or there's a skill you want to learn. Between you and your goal, there is a lot of work. And there's no way to get around it. You just have to continue to keep your goals in front of you and continue to take action to make it happen. If you have your goals in mind but never do anything, the goals are merely wishes. Next year, this time, you'll be at the same place, making no progress. But if you keep your goals in front of you, just keep on working on your goals, I believe next year you'll be proud of what you have achieved, and we will all be proud of you. So, can you turn around and tell your neighbor, you need to work. And tell the person again, I need to work. Lastly, to achieve your goals, you need teamwork. When Jesus was on earth, one of his goals was to preach the good news of the kingdom of God to the whole Israel. And he didn't do it by himself. In Luke chapter 9, verse 1 to 2 says, when Jesus called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and heal the sick. And in Luke chapter 10, verse 1 and 2 says, after this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them out 2 by 2 ahead of them and to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, the harvest is plentiful, but workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. Jesus was starting a movement, a ministry, but he didn't do everything himself. No, he was sending out people ahead of him to the towns to do promotions, to prepare for the venues, to do all the administration work, so that when he arrives, he just do the talking. And he also enabled 12 other disciples so they can do the same thing, so they can also cure diseases or cast out demons. Because he knows that to be effective in his ministries, the easiest way is to train others so they can do the same thing. Last year, one of our tenants moved out. It was a very old house. So we decided to renovate it before we rent it out again. The renovation involves taking out the old kitchen and bathroom, change the layout of internal walls a little bit, hanging new gypboards, installing new bathroom vanities and kitchen cabinets. So I got a worker to do most of the carpentry work for me, like changing framing, hanging gypboards, installing doors. I also hired plumbers to do the plumbing, and electricians to do the electrical works, and kitchen cabinet makers to install the new kitchen. One of the highlights of the new renovation was the subway tile backsplash. Now, after watching a few YouTube videos, my wife and my kids feel quite confident. So they bought the material and they installed the backsplash. And the result wasn't half bad, it was quite good. Now, installing subway tile backsplash is quite easy. If they can do it, you can do it. So this is something that I can recommend that you can try it out. You know what? Most of the work, I didn't do it myself. I partnered with a worker, and he has been a blessing. Not only did he do a lot of the work, he was coming up with ideas of how to solve problems and reminding me of things. Could I have done it myself? I mean, could I have figured out how to do the electrical wiring, plumbing, kitchen cabinets through self-learning from YouTube? Or as a carpenter, I didn't need to hire anyone to do the carpentry work for me. First reason is that because of my injury, a lot of the movement become very difficult for me, like bending down. And not only that, my stamina become very low. I got tired very quickly. I couldn't get a lot of work done in a day. So physically, I simply couldn't do it. The second reason is that if I'm going to do everything myself, the project will take too long. You know, time is money. Every week that the house is spent on the renovation is an opportunity cost of 1 week's rent. What I learned from running a building team was that the easiest way to increase productivity is not getting better tools, it's not upskilling. The easiest way is to hire another person. If instead of doing work by yourself, you hire another person to do it for you, you instantly double your productivity. If you hire 2 persons, you have tripled your productivity. Even if they are not as good as you, you still increase productivity significantly. So even if I'm not injured, I will still hire carpenters to do it for me. You know, having someone to do it for me make me more relaxed and make the progress just so much faster. And the third reason is that if I do it all by myself, it wouldn't be professional. You know, every trade is different. It takes mistakes and experiences to perfect your skills. If I try to self-taught and do everything like electrical work or plumbing, I would make a lot of mistakes. I would try to cut corners, and the end result, you know, it's not going to look professional. Plus, it's going to take much longer to do. You know, one of the mistakes I made with this renovation was that I got my worker to do the painting for me. I thought painting was easy. Anyone can do painting. You know what? I was wrong. Anyone can do painting, but not everyone can paint well. Painting is a skill. And you know, at the end, the wall was uneven when you turn on the light. And it was just unprofessional. I'll never do it again. Brothers and sisters, do you have a big goal? You know, some goals in life are simply too big for one person, like renovation or school science project. Or say you want to start a small group, or form a worship band or a rock band, or you want to start a business. If you're going to do everything by yourself, it's going to take too long. It's not going to save you any money, actually. You're not going to do a good job, and it's not sustainable because you'll be exhausted very soon. But if you have a team, if you have people who have the same skill as you, who can do your work when you can't, or if you have a team with people of different skills who can do the things you can't do, then you will be relaxed. The work will be done much faster with higher quality, and you will be able to achieve your goal. So I want you to turn around and say to your neighbor, you need teamwork.
You need teamwork.
So I want to make a conclusion. We Christians are called to honor God with our life, to make a difference in the world, and to work for the kingdom of God. I hope that every year we don't stay at the same place. We don't waste our time on earth. We have goals, we make goals, and we achieve goals. Some goals require God's work, some goals require your work, and some goals require teamwork. I hope that at the end of this year, you can look back and be happy for the many achieved goals. So, happy Chinese New Year, and may you have a fruitful year. Thank you.